Revelations 11. So in that way, God scattered them all over the earth, and that ended the building of the city. That is why the city was called Babel, meaning confusion. Because it was there that Jehovah confused them by giving them many languages, thus widely scattering them across the face of the earth. Shem's descendants. Shem's line of descendants included Arpachshad, born 2 years after the flood when Shem was 100 years old. After that he lived another 500 years and had many sons and daughters. When Arpachshad was 35 years old, his son Shelah was born, and after that he lived another 403 years and had many sons and daughters. Shelah was 30 years old when his son Eber was born, living 403 years after that, and had many sons and daughters. Eber was 34 years old when his son Peleg was born. He lived another 430 years afterwards, and had many sons and daughters. Peleg was 30 years old when his son Reu was born. He lived another 209 years after that, and had many sons and daughters. Reu was 32 years old when Serug was born. He lived 207 years after that, with many sons and daughters. Serug was 30 years old when his son Nahor was born. He lived 200 years after that, with many sons and daughters. Nahor was 29 years old at the birth of his son Terah. He lived 119 years afterwards, and had sons and daughters. By the time Terah was 70 years old, he had 3 sons, Abram, Nahor, and Haran. And Haran had a son named Lot. But Haran died young, in the land where he was born, in Ur of the Chaldeans, and was survived by his father. Meanwhile, Abram married his half-sister Sarai, while his brother Nahor married their orphan niece Milcah, who was the daughter of their brother Haran, and she had a sister named Iscah. But Sarai was barren; she had no children. Then Terah took his son Abram, his grandson Lot, his son Haran's child, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, and left Ur of the Chaldeans to go to the land of Canaan. But they stopped instead at the city of Haran and settled there. And there Terah died at the age of 205. Oops, this is Genesis. Sorry. Genesis 12. God had told Abram, "Leave your own country behind you and your own people and go to the land I will guide you to. If you do, I will cause you to become the father of a great nation. I will bless you and make your name famous, and you will be a blessing to many others. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you, and the entire world will be blessed because of you." So Abram departed as the Lord had instructed him, and Lot went too. Abram was 75 years old at the time. He took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, and all his wealth, the cattle and slaves he had gotten in Haran, and finally arrived in Canaan. Traveling through Canaan, they came to a place near Shechem, and set up camp beside the oak at Moreh. This area was inhabited by Canaanites at the time. Then Jehovah appeared to Abram and said, "I am going to give this land to your descendants." And Abram built an altar there to commemorate Jehovah's visit. Afterwards, Abram left that place and traveled southward to the hilly country between Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. There he made camp and made an altar to the Lord and prayed to him. Thus he continued slowly southward to Negeb, pausing frequently. There was at that time a terrible famine in the land, and so Abram went on down to Egypt to live. But as he was approaching the borders of Egypt, he asked Sarai his wife to tell anyone that she was his sister. "You are very beautiful," he told her, "and when the Egyptians see you, they will say, 'This is his wife. Let's kill him, and then we can have her.' But if you say you are my sister, then the Egyptians will treat me well because of you and spare my life." And sure enough, when they arrived in Egypt, everyone spoke of her beauty. When the palace aides saw her, they praised her to their king, the Pharaoh, and she was taken into his harem. Then Pharaoh gave Abram many gifts because of her: sheep, oxen, donkeys, men and women slaves, and camels. But the Lord sent a terrible plague upon Pharaoh's household on account of her being there. Then Pharaoh called Abram before him and accused him sharply. "What is this you have done to me?" he demanded. "Why didn't you tell me she was your wife? Why were you willing to let me marry her, saying she was your sister? Here, take her and be gone." And Pharaoh sent them out of the country under armed escort, Abram, his wife, and all his household and possessions. Genesis 13. So they left Egypt and traveled north into Negeb, Abram and his wife, and Lot, and all that they owned. For Abram was very rich in livestock, silver, and gold. Then they continued northwards towards Bethel, where he had camped before, between Bethel and Ai, to the place where he had built the altar, and there again he worshipped the Lord. Lot too was very wealthy, with sheep and cattle and many servants. But the land could not support both Abram and Lot with all their flocks and herds. There were too many animals for the available pasture. So fights broke out between the herdsmen of Abram and Lot, despite the danger they all faced from the tribes of Canaanites and Perizzites present in the land. Then Abram talked it over with Lot. "This fighting between our men has got to stop," he said. "We can't afford to let a rift develop between our clans. Close relatives such as we are must present a united front. I'll tell you what we'll do. Take your choice of any section of the land you want, and we will separate. If you want that part over there to the east, then I'll stay here in the western section. Or if you want the west, then I'll go over there to the east." Lot took a long look at the fertile lands of the Jordan River, well watered everywhere. This was before Jehovah destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. The whole section was like the Garden of Eden, or like the beautiful countryside around Zoar in Egypt. So that is what Lot chose, the Jordan Valley to the east of them. He went there with his flocks and servants, and thus he and Abram parted company. For Abram stayed in the land of Canaan, while Lot lived among the cities of the plain, settling at a place near the city of Sodom. The men of this area were unusually wicked and sinned greatly against Jehovah. After Lot was gone, the Lord said to Abram, "Look as far as you can see in every direction, for I am going to give it all to you and your descendants. And I am going to give you so many descendants that, like dust, they can't be counted. Hike in all directions and explore the new possessions I am giving you." Then Abram moved his tents to the oaks of Mamre near Hebron and built an altar to Jehovah there. Genesis 14. Now war filled the land. Amraphel, the king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, Chedorlaomer, the king of Elam, and Tidal, the king of Goim, fought against Bera, king of Sodom, Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, Shemaba, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, later called Zor. These kings of Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and Bela mobilized their armies in Siddim Valley, that is, the valley of the Dead Sea. For 12 years they had all been subject to King Chedorlaomer, and now in the 13th year they rebelled. 1 year later, Chedorlaomer and his allies arrived and the slaughter began, for they were victorious over the following tribes at the places indicated. I'm going to stop